Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki, Anantakosi Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Jai, Om Vishnu Pad Parahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Parahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtatara Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, chapter number 8, text number 43. You can repeat after me. Snatvanu savanam tasmin kalindya salile shive Kritvochitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasana Snatvanu savanam tasmin Kalindya salile shive Kritvochitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasana. Snatvanu savanam tasmin Kalindya salile shive Kritvochitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasana. Snavat Shalile shive Kritvochitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasana. Snatvanu savanam tasmin Kalindya salile shive Kritvochitani vivas Atmana kalpitasana. Snatvanu savanam tasmin Kalindya salile shive Krito Atmana kalpitasana. Snadvanu savanam tasmin Kalinja shalile shive Ritvo chitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasanaha Snadvanu savanam tasmin Kalinja salile shive Ritvo chitani nivasan Atmana kalpitasanaha. Snadva, after taking bath. Anusavanam, 3 times. Tasmin, in that. Kalindya, in the river Kalindi, the Yamuna. Salile, in the water. Shive, which is very auspicious. Kritva, performing. Uchitani, suitable. Nivasan, sitting. Atmanaha, of the self. Kalpita asana, having prepared a sitting place. Translation. Narada Muni instructed, can repeat? My dear boy, in the waters of the Yamuna river, which is known as Kalindi, you should take 3 baths daily, because the water is very auspicious, sacred and clear. After bathing, you should perform the necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga, and then sit down on your asana, sitting place, in a calm and quiet position. So let's just go through the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki! Narada Muni instructed, my dear boy, in the waters of the Yamuna river, which is known as Kalindi, you should take 3 baths daily, because the water is very auspicious, sacred and clear. After bathing, you should perform the necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga, and then sit down on your asana, sitting place, in a calm and quiet position. Purport. It appears from this statement that Dhruva Maharaj had already been instructed how to practice the 8-fold yoga system, which is known as Ashtanga Yoga. This system is explained in our Bhagavad Gita as it is in the chapter entitled Sankhya Yoga. That's chapter 6, verse 11 to 12 and 13 to 14. It is understood that in Ashtanga Yoga, one practices settling the mind and then concentrating it on the form of Lord Vishnu, as will be described in the following verses. It is clearly stated here that Ashtanga Yoga is not a bodily gymnastic exercise, but a practice to concentrate the mind on the form of Vishnu. Before sitting on his asana, which is also described in Bhagavad Gita, one has to cleanse himself very nicely in clear or sacred water thrice daily. The water of the Yamuna is naturally very clear and pure, and thus if anyone bathes there 3 times, undoubtedly he will be very greatly purified externally. Narada Muni therefore instructed Dhruva Maharaj to go to the bank of the Yamuna and thus become externally purified. This is part of the gradual process of practicing mystic yoga. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine. Hare Krishna. It says Sankhya Yoga. That's a good point because the chapter is now entitled Dhyana Yoga. That's what I found as well. So let's go through the translation and purport. Narada Muni instructed, "My dear boy, in the waters of the Yamuna river, which is known as Kalindi, you should take 3 baths daily, because the water is very auspicious, sacred and clear. After bathing, you should perform the necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga and then sit down on your asana, sitting place in a calm and quiet position." So now Narada Muni is beginning to instruct Dhruva Maharaj. In the previous text, he was explaining to Dhruva that actually, it is suitable for you getting to the texts which are brought up in the purport. So, what is Sankhya Yoga? It's the analytical study of matter and spirit, and it's looking into the root and the source behind everything. And if we actually look at the root and source behind everything, of course, who are we going to find there? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll discover that actually matter is different from spirit, and that the soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And so the conclusion from the Sankhya Yoga system is actually non-different from the conclusion of Bhakti Yoga, which also teaches us that we are eternally parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and our eternal position is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whether we study Bhakti Yoga or the original Sankhya Yoga philosophy, in both we will find that it's our constitutional position to serve the Supreme Lord as his parts and parcels. Therefore, what left is there to do other than to serve the Lord? So, and in this chapter also, it's described how there are many yoga systems and there's this yoga ladder, but all of the different yoga systems are just stepping stones. Like there's Ashtanga Yoga, there's Hatha Yoga, so many different yoga systems, but all of them are just leading up to Bhakti Yoga, which is the supreme yoga system, which is the highest of all yoga systems. It's said in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, text number 47, Yoginam api sarvisham mat gate nantar atmana shradhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So that devotee who worships Krishna in transcendental loving service, that's actually the person who is practicing the greatest yoga system. That's what that text is saying. And the purpose of yoga ultimately actually is to link with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in order to do that, first we have to learn how to control our mind, how to control our senses. And so here Dhruva Maharaj, he's going to practice Ashtanga Yoga to learn how to control his mind, how to control his senses. But we know that the mind can be the greatest friend and the greatest enemy. And especially we find oftentimes it's the greatest enemy. Also in Bhagavad Gita it's explained that the mind, it's more restless than a raging wind. It's so difficult to control the mind. So how is it that we actually fix the mind on our desired goal? It's just by practicing bhakti yoga actually, because everything we're doing is meant to help us to always remember Krishna and never forget him. That's Nectar of Devotion, which explains that. So already by practicing, we are controlling the mind, not merely just by our own efforts, but because thinking of Krishna is all attractive. Krishna is the most sweet, most attractive. So by practicing, by chanting, then we're already meditating on him and in that way controlling the mind. And then it's a matter of param dristvani vartate. We gradually cease our sense enjoyment by experiencing that higher taste. But today, we see so many different so-called yoga systems, which are actually not even real yoga systems. Many years ago, I was practicing different yoga systems. I was trying hatha and all these different, like Prabhupada refers to it as gymnastic exercises. But there were other yoga systems I came into contact with too, like hula hoop yoga and laughter yoga. Those are not even mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. They're not even at all bona fides, just so that everyone is clear on that. So people are manifesting their own yoga systems, but real yoga is something within in our hearts. It's something internal, and it's really just meant for linking with Krishna, for realizing our constitutional position in relation to Krishna and serving him and learning how to develop our devotional service again. So this is actually what real yoga is, but it's also explained in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that in Kali Yuga, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In Kali Yuga, we can't really effectively practice this Ashtanga Yoga. So Dhruva, he's just 5 years old, but Narada Muni expects him to practice because he can. When we were 5, not only did we not know any yoga, but definitely we couldn't at all be expected to practice Ashtanga Yoga. And even now, okay, we're not 5 anymore, still we can't do it. We still can't do it. But fear not. We have a very simple and wonderful process of just chanting the holy names, because all of the other yoga systems are not possible for us. And in any case, when we're practicing chanting, then all of the other requirements or all of the other qualifications are attained as when we're practicing all of the other yoga systems, simply by chanting the holy names of the Lord. And in a purport here, another purport in Bhagavad Gita, it's chapter 9, text 2. Srila Prabhupada explains that no one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, or any other yoga independently. By these yogic methods, one may make a little progress towards bhakti yoga, but without coming to the stage of devotional service, one cannot understand what is the personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it also confirms that when one becomes purified by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the signs of Krishna or the signs of God. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata. So just by practicing bhakti yoga, all of the other processes of all of the other yoga systems are already fulfilled. And I could think of one example like that. Nishingananda Prabhu, who stays near Johannesburg, he has this machine which can detect what's going on in the subtle body, the aura. And he saw that before he had chanted, he had like some contamination in his subtle body. And then when he chanted for just 15 minutes, all of his chakras were immediately perfectly aligned. So in the yoga system, the yogi practices controlling all of his senses with great effort, and his goal is to close all of his chakras and then to open up this chakra. And it's such a complicated process. But what's amazing is that is already achieved in the body of a devotee. And we don't even have to know anything about any of that. Maybe we don't know anything about chakras. We don't need to. We just need to chant Hare Krishna, and all of that already happens. And the yogis, they'll go, wow, how did you do that? I've been practicing for thousands of years, and I still haven't done that. You're doing it. You're all doing it. Just by chanting Hare Krishna. And then another nice text which explains how everything is received just by practicing bhakti is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, text 8, chapter 18, text number 12, where Prabhupada, it's explained that all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So everything else already comes when we just practice. We can't do the Ashtanga Yoga like our exalted Dhruva Maharaj, but we can chant Hare Krishna. Then in the text 11 to 14, it's explained what Ashtanga Yoga is. So this is what Dhruva is doing. He will sit in a secluded place. He's going to sit on kusha grass on the ground, covered in deer skin. And then he's going to purify his heart by controlling his mind and senses, by fixing the mind on one point. And then he's going to hold his body erect in a straight line, his head and his neck, and then he's going to stare at the tip of his nose, and he's going to live free from sex life, devoid of all fear, and then meditate upon Krishna within his heart. So easy, right? So this is what Dhruva Maharaj is about to embark upon, and he is successful because he can do that. So continuing in the purport. It is understood that in Ashtanga Yoga one practices settling the mind and then concentrating it on the form of Lord Vishnu, as will be described in the following verses. It is clearly stated here that Ashtanga Yoga is not a bodily gymnastic exercise, but a practice to concentrate the mind on the form of Vishnu. Before sitting on his asana, which is also described in Bhagavad Gita, one has to cleanse himself very nicely in clear or sacred water thrice daily. The water of the Yamuna is naturally very clear and pure, and thus if anyone bathes there 3 times, undoubtedly he will be greatly purified externally. Narada Muni therefore instructed Dhruva Maharaj to go to the bank of the Yamuna and thus become externally purified. This is part of the gradual process of practicing mystic yoga. So the Yamuna River is described in here as being very clear and pure, but if we go to the Yamuna River today, we'll see that, with our eyes, we'll see that there may be pollution in the Yamuna River. And externally, the Yamuna may not appear to be as clear as it was then. But still, bathing in such a river is purifying. Still, it is purifying. I mean, there are so many campaigns to try and get the Yamuna River to be clean again, to stop the pollution that's happening there. But actually, still the Yamuna is purifying, regardless of whether pollution is there or not. Of course, we should respect Yamuna River and try not to allow the pollution to take place, but she is still purifying always. And I just wanted to read a few verses or highlight a few parts of the Yamunastakam by Srila Rupa Goswami, describing the purity and the potency of Yamuna Devi. So simply by desiring to bath in her pleasant crystalline waters frees one from even the greatest of sins. So not even just bathing in her waters, but simply by desiring to bath in her waters, we're freed from our greatest sins. And then in the second text, a part there is really nice. She increases the flow of confidential devotional service, Raganuga Bhakti, for Nanda Nandana within one's heart, and blesses everyone who simply desires to reside on her banks. So if we just desire to live there, even if we don't live there, she blesses us with Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous devotional service for the Supreme Lord. Being witness to many of Sri Mukunda's wonderful pastimes, she manifests these pastimes in the hearts of those who take shelter of her. So many pastimes of Krishna take place in the Yamuna, and she allows those pastimes to manifest within the heart of those who take shelter of her. She skillfully inspires love of Godhead, prema, in the hearts of the Vaishnavas who bath in her. Yamuna Devi's charming banks are further beautified by the fragrance from the flowers of Kadamba trees and by loving cows. She is especially delighted when Nanda Lal's devotees assemble on her banks. Filled with the warbling of thousands of joyful swans, Yamuna Devi is worshipable to demigods, siddhas, kinnaras, and humans whose hearts are dedicated to the service of Sri Hari. Anyone who is touched by her gentle breezes is freed from the cycle of birth and death. Just being touched by her breeze frees us from the cycle of birth and death. Yamuna Devi flows through the three worlds known as Bhu, Bhuva, and Swa, and distributes her loving emotions. Singing her glories burns even the greatest sins to ashes. She has become fragrant by the scented ointments from the body of King Nanda's son, Sri Krishna, who enjoys to play in her waters. So here, Dhruva is being instructed to reside on the banks of the Yamuna until he has successfully completed his mission. And what's interesting is that actually the place where he is doing this, in the previous purport, it's explained that there's a place called Dhruva Ghat, and it's a place with nice trees of fruits and flowers, and it's famous because Dhruva Maharaj meditated there. So where he is currently seated, about to embark on his meditation quest, this place has been named after him. That would be on the banks of the Yamuna River. And there's a nice conversation with Revati Nandana Prabhu and Srila Prabhupada, where Revati Nandana, he's asking Srila Prabhupada, what is a sacred place? Because here he's being instructed to sit in a sacred place on the banks of the Yamuna to practice. And Srila Prabhupada says that a sacred place generally is actually a lonely place, a solitary place. And if it's not solitary, it's actually not sacred. And then he explains that if you simply go to the Ganges or to the Yamuna and you sit there, immediately you'll find your heart and mind to be purified, immediately. So he's just saying by sitting on the banks of the Yamuna, this is what takes place. And then after that, once you're in that solitary place on the bank of the Yamuna or Ganges, then you can practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses. But actually, I mean, we know that our spiritual masters encourage us not to just reside on the banks of the Yamuna, but actually to come here and to preach. Because I mean, and actually here in the previous purport, in text 42, you were reading how unless one is very advanced in spiritual life, it is recommended that he live in such holy places and execute devotional service there. So we're not very advanced. So it's recommended we live in a sacred place next to the Yamuna and practice there. But an advanced devotee like Narada Muni, who is engaged in preaching work, can serve the Supreme Lord anywhere. Sometimes he even goes to the hellish planets. So the Western world, or some places that we have to face here, it is like the hellish planet, isn't it? And although we may not be advanced, we are encouraged to become advanced because we need to preach. And His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj was also encouraging his disciples and followers who were there with him in the Dham that actually it's very wonderful that you will come to the Dham, but now please go back and preach. This is our mission, this is our mood, not to just remain on the banks of the Yamuna and chant all day. It's very nice if you can do that, but please go and preach. So this is the mood that our Srila Prabhupada has given us. And actually, if we look at where we are now, we could consider that we are on the banks of the Yamuna. We are in a sacred place. We are, I mean, Radhakund is here, Krishna is here, his consort is here, everybody is here, the whole of Vaikuntha is here, so it is a sacred place. And what's amazing is that even though we seem to be in the middle of a very hellish place in Kali Yuga, there's this sanctuary, and it's because Srila Prabhupada, wherever he went, he made that a place of pilgrimage. So we are in a sacred place. Wherever Srila Prabhupada put his lotus feet, that is a sacred place. That is a place of pilgrimage. So here is the bank of the Yamuna. We are here. Your home can also be that way. And in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, text 14, in the purport, it's also said that some say that devotees should remain in holy places like Vrindavan or some holy town where the Lord lived, but a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavan by his devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada, wherever he went, created the atmosphere of Vrindavan. So we're in Vrindavan, wherever he went. And not only just the temple, not only just our homes, but actually this place, Vrindavan, we want that place to reside in our hearts. And that's not very far away at all. We may think Raj is so far away, but actually the real Vrindavan should be seated in our hearts. It's just a matter of consciousness. My Guru Maharaj was explaining that there was one devotee, he took a break from family life, just a little holiday, to go to the Dham. But while he was next to Radhakund, the most sacred of all sacred places, he was photographing himself, video calling himself, with his family and telling them, look, I'm at Radhakund. So, consciousness actually was not there at Radhakund, it was with his family. So we could be right next to Radhakund thinking about everything here and not really paying attention to where we are. Or we could be right here, seated wherever we are. We could be seated anywhere and in our hearts be residing in the Dham, next to Radhakund, all the time. And that's the most solitary of all places. And it's just a matter of consciousness, really. I just wanted to end with a beautiful verse from Padyavali, which is a compilation of devotional poetry given to us by Srila Rupa Goswami. It says here that it's text number 45, and it says, "May Lord Madhava's pastimes, which bring a sense pleasure stronger than that experienced by the hedonists, a liberation more real than that felt by the yogis in their hearts, and a bliss more intense than that tasted by the most expert drinkers of nectar, protect you." And then there is another text I just wanted to read because it's very beautiful. It's a benediction, a prayer for all of us, by an unknown author. "May Krishna's holy name, which is a reservoir of all transcendental happiness, the destruction of Kali Yuga's sins, the most purifying of all purifying things, the saintly person's food as he traverses the path to the spiritual world, the pleasure garden where the voices of the greatest saints, philosophers, and poets play, the life of the righteous, and the seed of the tree of religion bring transcendental auspiciousness to you all." Srila Prabhupada ki! Are there any questions or comments or corrections? Madhurya Kadambini. I know you have something. Okay. Anyone else has anything? Okay, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.